Oh, yeah, 7:02. So, look, there might be a couple of extras that join in as we get going, but thank you to everyone that's made yourself available tonight, and thanks to David and Isaac from TidyHQ for putting this session together for us and for extending a very gracious trial period for our clubs that are not currently on board. We're looking forward to, obviously, we've got 5 of our 10 clubs that are on board at the moment, and yeah, looking forward to the rest of the clubs trialling the system and hopefully enjoying the benefits that come from it. I've been using it quite extensively the last couple of weeks and found it very good for bringing everything together, making life easier as a committee member. And I'm a committee member at our cricket club, and I'm sitting here tonight with a few of the other guys from the cricket club, hence why I'm here as Steve Hogan rather than under my own name. But look, yeah, engage with the program. Make as many questions or comments through the chat tonight as you can while we've got Isaac and David here to answer those questions. But yeah, again, if you've got questions after today's session, or if you want to get a copy of the session for other committee members, make touch base with me tomorrow or later in the week, and we'll get that out to clubs. I think that's it from my side of things. Over to you, Isaac.
Sure, thank you. I've also got Stuart Goddard here as well, who's part of the team and also part of AFL Gippsland as well with his other hat. So very familiar with some of the stuff that you guys are going through. So a bit of a background, and we're recording this and we'll put it up on YouTube or what have you afterwards as well, so everyone can access it. So a bit of a background. The reason that I'm sitting in front of you was I was a very frustrated club president, and before that in various roles on my committee running things for my footy club. And it's part of those experiences that drove me to build TidyHQ. Primarily what I saw was we were struggling to attract volunteers or retain them. And when I sort of stepped back and looked at how we run our footy club, we made it just very painful to run things, to get everyone on the same page and to do the job of the secretary or treasurer or what have you. And as a result, it was really hard to hand over the keys to anyone else or to get other people involved to help us out. And I suppose when I went to my league, when I went to the AFL, local government, state government, etc., to get a hand with, I'd never run a footy club before. And I was on a bunch of other committees as well at the same time. And they always pointed me to Word documents or spreadsheets and things like this. Most of the league's attention was on the on-field stuff or the competition management side of things. We had Sports CG with the registrations and those sorts of things. And most of the energy for my club obviously went to on-field stuff. And obviously everyone cares about competition management, statistics and ladders and those sorts of things. So rightfully, that's where most of the passion lies. But 99% of my headaches running the footy club was sort of off field. So that was keeping a track of minutes, keeping a track of the finances, running all the social events, sending out newsletters, all those sorts of things, delegating tasks around the committee. That's what sort of made me, I was doing 40 hours a week running my footy club. Which is ridiculous, but not unusual, as I've since found out. The average time for a committee person in your sort of position is 11 hours a week, which is a huge amount of time. And so my goal when I started building this thing was to reduce the amount of time to run the club from 11 hours down to a few hours. And as a result, it's easier to attract people onto your committee and to delegate jobs out to other people. So without further ado, I'll get into the platform. So we've got a range of people. Some people have been using Tidy for a few years, others are brand newies. So there is a chat function. Throw your questions on there as we go. David and Stuart will help answer it as we roll, or I'll try and answer it as we go as well. So congratulations, you're now part of the Bondi Club for this example. So you'll be in various stages of this as we go. But primarily, this is what we're trying to get to is a populated system. So it makes it easy to hand over to the next generation of committee or additional people in your committee. So here we have a heads up display as to what meetings are coming up, what tasks are happening, what payments have come through, what events are being run, and all those sorts of things. Down the left-hand side, there's a bunch of areas. So depending on your position, depending on what permissions that you have within your club, you can allocate who has access to the finances and who doesn't, and all of those sorts of things. You can see quite a few areas here, like events and meetings and web pages, shop, storage, etc. If you don't have access to those, that's because they're under the apps section. The app section are a bunch of tools that you can use to extend the power of TidyHQ. We're not trying to be a silver bullet for every club. You know, obviously depending on who's running your club will dictate what's most important to them. So you can choose to switch on any of these apps to extend the power of TidyHQ, and you can integrate in with other things like Zoom, like MailChimp, like Sports CG, so you can sync across your players from Sports CG account, which I think most of you have done now. If you haven't, you can go in there and prompt and get that started with it all. And there's these other ones down here, like events and meetings and storage, which we'll go through as well. The first bit, I suppose, to start with is this organisation settings. So this is where we sort of set up the account and get everyone going. You know, from the top, I'll start from the top. We have this activity feed. So this is a big audit trail of everything that's going on in your organisation. So as you have different people logging in and doing bits and pieces, you'll see that appears in your audit trail. So from a governance perspective, what we're trying to do is understand who's doing what around the place. And if things do hit the fan, you can sort of trace back how it happened. I'll skip over association settings because it might not be too relevant for yourself, but that's where Sean's group's connected in with you guys. Contacts, so you can generate a contact ID number. So this is like a membership number, or many clubs use it as a membership number for it, totally optional to be used. What I really wanted to get to was this one here, custom fields. So we've got a contacts database and you can have unlimited fields within each contact profile. So for me, running my football club, I wanted to capture what school the kids came through so I could work out what my pathways were. I wanted to know any medical conditions, any dietary requirements that my guys had, and things of that nature. I also wanted to know when they first played for the club, so I'd capture that information quite often. First aid certificates, CPR certificates, I'd capture that sort of information as well. A lot of the junior clubs in particular, but it applies to the senior clubs, also capture if they'd like to be a volunteer as well, and what sort of volunteer they're happy to be, team manager on the canteen or what have you, which will all come into play later on down the track when I go through the contacts table. So this is a really powerful area. There's all sorts of fields that a custom field can be. So we can start capturing dates and file uploads and all sorts of things in here. So you can adjust it however you feel fit. Date, time and currency should have automatically been set up for you when we set up the account. So you shouldn't have to touch anything here, but this is how you adjust your currency and time. The most important one, I suppose, for the footy club is the financial calendar start date. This varies a little bit from footy club to footy club. Usually it's not January, December. Often it starts in November or something along those lines. So depending on your football club or maybe it's the league sort of dictates when your financial calendar begins and ends, you might need to adjust that. Next, you've got finance settings. So GST for tax is something that you should probably have in there. Organisation number, so that's where you drop in your ABN for all your invoices that are going through and tickets and what have you. You can drop in additional information or payment information for any invoices. So lots of clubs put in their BSB and account number into these areas. Footer information might be stuff, thanks for supporting the club, or, you know, get in touch with the secretary if you have any issues, things of that nature that you can drop in here. Categories is like our chart of accounts for the finances. So this can become quite important for us. But here is all the different categories that you typically drop your financials into. So you can have unlimited number of categories here. And you can include tax as part of it as a default type situation. You can have as many categories as you want. If you do end up creating two the same, like this person here has done, you can actually merge these together. So we end up with just the one category. So you can play around with this and get really finite with your chart of accounts. Lots of organizations actually do it so we get more finite. So events, and then they'll call it, you know, golf day, for example. And they might have another one called events quiz night. So they can get quite granular when it comes to financial reporting and budgeting and things like that, which can become, yeah, makes life easier for the treasurer. Memberships, this is just default text that you use when you establish a membership level, which you guys can go through and adjust as needed. Organisation details, so this is a bit of an overview of your club. Mailing address, all of this should be fairly self-explanatory as to all the details. Your logo, of course, and a scratch pad is just, I used to put the wireless password for the club in here so we wouldn't forget. But you can put all sorts of things in here as well. Payment settings, so this is how you're going to get paid. If there's someone that you want to notify on every single payment that comes through the door, this can get quite noisy if you get lots of payments coming through for event tickets and what have you. So you might not want to have that on, but typically it's the treasurer. And Stripe is how you get paid. So we work with Stripe Payment Gateway. So there will be a connect button here for you guys if you want to connect to Stripe and set up that payment gateway. It's usually about a 4 or 5 minute process to establish a Stripe account. And what that'll do is it'll settle all money into your bank account every week as the process happens. Finally, there's this public page details. So this is the front-facing page for your Tidy account. Some clubs use this as their website, so they dress it up accordingly. Other organisations just use it as a portal for memberships and event tickets and things like that, so they dress it up accordingly. So it's up to you how you do that, and we can go through that in more detail later on. We're actually in the process of updating our web pages at the moment, so we'll probably show you some more in later weeks about that. So here, often clubs will put in their own information as to why they exist and why they're good and all that sort of stuff with it all. Now that we've set up the organisation settings, if you head over to admins and roles, so this is where you can invite the rest of your committee. Over on the right here, you can see all the permissions that we have for different people. So this person here, Jordan, we don't want him to have access to memberships and storage and these areas. He's only got access to these bits here. And so that's what we give him permissions for. And you can edit permissions under here and give him access to different things. So you can invite however many people you'd like. In as administrators, it's unlimited. The goal for me was we had a token 5 people running the club. By the time I left, I had 17 people running the club. And the goal of it was to delegate more information out. So I wasn't spending 40 hours running a footy club. I had other people helping me. So a real key to Tidy and task management is roles. So this becomes part of your succession plan. So these are all the roles that you have in your club. So if you've gone through the Terry Dillon exercise, for example, he's hot on organisational structure, as am I. Understanding all the different roles that need to run to run your footy club is really critical. So again, for me running my AGM, the first few years, it was, hey, Greg, can you become secretary? And he'd say, well, what am I up for? And I said, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. You just have to run some meetings. What I wanted was, you know, a job description as to what's going on around the place. So for example, the secretary here, we can set up the role, put in all the roles and responsibilities. I just ripped this from the AFL community website and adjusted it to suit my club. And I can drop in all these details with it all, what relationships they're expected to have, who they're accountable to, what they're expected to do, and all those sorts of things. When I'm ready, I can just drop in whoever's secretary. Thanks, Isaac, you're now secretary. And it's as easy as that to set up the secretary role. When it comes to the AGM, you just hit print roles over on the right here. And this is what you print out and bring to your AGM. This is all the roles at the footy club, everything that the president's expected to do, the responsibilities, the relationships, who they're accountable to. And you can have as many roles as you like here, coaches and team managers and sponsorship coordinators and all those sorts of things. And you can see what's vacant and what's currently been occupied by people. So that job for me was, you know, saved me a bunch of time, especially into the AGM and trying to allocate jobs around the place. Next, I'll focus on the contacts. So if you've connected with Sports TG, you'll automatically be importing in all your STG players automatically, which is pretty neat and helps a lot. For me, I needed to import all my past players. So I had a myriad of spreadsheets and most of it was in old boys' heads, to be perfectly honest with you. And then when I was tasked with doing the 84 reunion dinner or what have you, I didn't have the faintest idea as to how to make that happen. So it was a matter of talk to Bushy, he'll talk to Clooney, and Gaz will know how to get in touch with the captain who'll sort it out. Us as a club, we needed to have that in a database for us. So here we can, over here, we can import contacts. So you can upload a CSV, which is a spreadsheet file. And it's actually pretty easy. I'm just going to, one of these. So you just upload your CSV file. And what you can actually do is allocate any of these columns to the various fields that you have set up in TidyHQ. And you can also add it to a group. So I'd often import each group of contacts accordingly. So if this was the 1984 Premiership team, for example, I'd import them like that. And that's how I'd build out my database with it all. I won't import those guys. So that's how you import contacts into the platform. If you need a hand with it, let us know. Guys like Stuart will be more than happy to give you a hand with it all. But once they're in, you can group these people as often as you like. So Isaac can be part of the 84 reunion side. He can be part of the 2012 committee. He can be part of the past presidents group. The idea is to segment your groups in as many different ways as you want, because it'll become easier to communicate with them in the future. So we'd have a past president's dinner, for example, at my club to try and inspire sponsors and what have you, and just thank our past presidents. Again, having that all into a succinct contact group is really helpful for me to just send a quick message out, and I'll show you how to do that now. I don't even know if I have a president's group in this particular group account, sorry. Let's just say it's the committee. Oh, there's a president's group there. Let's pretend there's a bunch of groups in here. So I could say, you know, president's dinner on the 11th, you know, dinner at my place. So it should be this easy to get this sorted out for you. You can use merge tags here. So you can say, you know, hi, so-and-so, hope you're having a great year, etc. and you can send out a communication really quickly and easily to all the presidents without having to try and remember 10 past presidents' email addresses and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes really, really quick and easy to send out things. You can add attachments, and we'll send out a pretty well formatted email to all the presidents saying, hey, there's a president's dinner on the 11th that we'd love you to come to. So this becomes quite powerful when we have all sorts of groups that you can fire off emails to and get them along to various bits and pieces. Lots of clubs use this for, say, first aid certificates or first aid training and things like that. So you can send off emails around those sorts of things. We'll skip over events and get on with that perhaps another time. Let us know in the chat if you'd like to learn more about that one, and we'll do that in a future webinar. Next, probably important thing is finances. So finances, we are planning an integration with Xero before the end of the year. So if you're one of the bigger clubs that use or need to use Xero, we'll be syncing up a bunch of this information to that platform. In the meantime, for my club, we turned over 6 figures. We were GST registered, but we didn't really have, not officially, payroll and assets and liabilities. So we needed just cash book accounting. We didn't need P&L accounting. So the idea here, and the language is written down so you don't have to be an accountant to be the treasurer, because that's what my experience was with my club. I didn't always have an accountant to be the treasurer. So here I can quickly see total income, total expenses, and the net cash position. Often I'd go to my accountant in the first few years and ask them what's going on, and he'd say, she's right, mate, don't worry about it. I've got it covered. And I rarely knew the financial position of the club, which, as I've discovered, there's criminal liabilities for me as a president not knowing that sort of information. So the goal here is to democratize this sort of stuff. So it's more than just the president or more than just the treasurer that knows what's going on. You can restrict the finances area, like I said before, so you don't need everyone to have access to it. So here I can see what's going on, how much money's come through the doors from my club. I can see how much money I should have in the bank, how much money's owed to us and the net position of that. I can compare this year against last financial year as well. I can see where all my money's come from. So this is more just interesting and a sort of good observation point for any committee meetings and things like that. And I can also understand where all my money's gone throughout the course of the year as well. The next tab over is the transactions. So this looks a bit like the online bank statements. What we're doing, as people are automatically paying you through the events page or through the membership portal or what have you, the system's automatically reconciling based on those categories that we set up before, those finance categories, into the different areas. So that's how we get our automated reports, which I'll show you in a second. And that's how all these transactions take place. So you can see here that Isaac bought an event ticket to this 90s pool party for 115 bucks, and it's automatically been dropped in here. We're collecting tax on all the events, so we're recording that number as well for them all. You can record manually deposits, so obviously I'm well aware that people just give you cash or checks or transfer your money. So for example, is there a steward in here? I don't even know. Not by the look of it. Let's say Jody from Listerfield has come in. She's paid us yesterday. She paid us by cash, and it was for a t-shirt, and it was for 30 bucks. So it was, well, there's a specific category for t-shirts for some reason. There was tax included. So you can add as many line items here as you like with it all, and we can complete that. Oops. We'll just remove those because we're not using them. So we'll complete that one. And now there's a deposit there for Jody Winley for 30 bucks, marking it as paid. You can also send out Invoices to people. So this was a big one for me. If you want to send it out to a team of people, let's just say we send it out to the whole committee from 2016 for that president's dinner that I ran, and everyone was chipping in $50, and it was for, I don't know, we'll count it as a donation, shall we? It's probably not kosher. Anyway, what I can do is I can complete and send an invoice to all 6 people here in one shot, which can be quite easy, and especially if you're doing team subs or something like that, you can send it up, an invoice out to a bulk number of people all at the same time, and chase them for it quite easily or automatically for people. This was really good for me because I'd run a bunch of events where I had blokes saying, you know, I'm good for it, and it would rely on me to chase them up for money, and often we'd lose a lot of money because I'd forget. So this way I can send an invoice and get them chased for money. And the biggest kudos for me was that guys would pay very quickly because they all of a sudden knew that I was on their tail and I wasn't going to forget. The system was chasing them for us, which was really good. When I was running my committee meetings, a big one that I'd go to is this awaiting payments section, because this is who owes us. So this is everyone that owes us money and who we owe. So if, you know, the Gatorade's been dropped off and we owe $400 and it's due on the 24th, so it's overdue now, we could keep a track of all this stuff. And if people are overdue, so this guy here, he's a bit dodgy and he still owes us money from earlier in the year, I can come in here and either I can add a part payment. So he came in, he cried poor, he's only got $40 on him. I can mark him down as paying part cash, $40. And then he's already made 2 installments now of $40 each, and he's got $40 left outstanding. So all of this sort of manual stuff can automatically be done, or we can spread the load for the treasurer. But it means that me as president, I've got a common, we're all on the one page with who we're chasing money for. If someone's a bad debt, we can just delete this deposit, and it'll automatically sync everything across. We've got a fairly light budgeting tool, so it's fairly rudimentary, but again, it's really quite simple. We plan to spend $500 every month because the coach wants 100 footies or 50 footies or whatever it ends up being. And you can compare that against the actuals as to what we've actually spent or had come in the door as we go. There's also financial reporting. So this is usually enough for the league. I'll let Sean tell us if it's not. But for my league, they wanted some audited books. Obviously, we'd run this by the accountant as well. But this is obviously collecting all the tax numbers that you need for your BAS statements. It's giving you a net cash position as well, so you can understand how you're placed as a club. You can also compare it against previous periods as well, so you can see where we were same time last year on the financial footing, which is really powerful. The other thing that you can do is you can share a read-only version of this to people, which is obviously good for the AGM and things like that. So we can share this and they get a read-only version of this that they can look at before they come to the meeting or at the AGM or what have you, so they can see, okay, this is where the club's at, this is how much has come in the door or gone out the door for the various expenses that have occurred. You can also obviously bring up a report for previous periods as well, and you can also have these snapshots as well for different years as you've gone through, so you can understand exactly what's taken place at any time for the club. Which again, for me as a club, we go through these big sine wave of off-field, on-field success. Usually they'd correlate, but we'd often have off-field suffer when blokes walked out the door with a whole lot of information in their head and no one knew what was going on. So this way we've got a bit of history as well that's following us around.
let me know, I'll just have a quick check of the chat area and if there's anything more specific. Are you able to download MyOb details? You can export out a CSV of this. So I know that some customers are exporting out a CSV of their transactions here, and then uploading it into MyOb. I don't use MyOb, so I'm not too familiar with how that works with it. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but that's where we're at with the MyOb side of things. Once we plug into Xero, theoretically, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to plug it into MyOb as well. So that's finances. The other major or most popular area is meetings, surprisingly. So meetings are a pain. I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys that. So for our committee meeting, it's really easy to set up your meeting. We've got a Zoom integration, as you might have spied in the app section. You can integrate in your Zoom. So we can have a meeting like this if we want for our committee meetings, which has become the norm in some parts of Victoria. So we can set up our agenda. We can send that all out here. And then we can go through and start the meeting. David, open the meeting, for example. The advantage of this system is that, one, everyone can see the screen and what's been minuted as it's been written down. So broadly speaking, my problem with committee meetings is that they go for hours and no one really likes that or appreciates it. So my commitment to my committee was no meeting would go longer than 45 minutes. And the way to do that is to have some real strict structure around the agenda, and also making sure that we're sticking to it and everyone's on the same page with what's been minuted. So the meeting stays at the pace that the minute taker can keep up with. And it also means that Sean isn't off talking about red versus yellow footies. We can just get really focused as to what's going on. So you can add attachments here. You can write down what decisions are being made, what tasks are coming out of each of these agenda items for us. So as we go through, we can make a decision, you know, David to review the finances before the AGM. And the task here is for David to review the finances. I'll assign it to Bev because we don't have David in here. But we can assign this task as the meeting's had. So again, I'd shoot from the hips running my committee meetings saying, David, can you do this? Stuart, can you do that? Vince, can you do the other thing? And then it would rely on them or me to remember, which wasn't always great. So this way we can record all these tasks as to what needs to get done. As soon as I hit save and close, Bev is going to get an email saying, hey, this task has been allocated to you. She's going to get another email if she hasn't marked it complete when it's due. So it's saving me from chasing people to get things done. Once the meeting's all been saved and closed, what we can do is share these minutes with everyone that attended and anyone else. And the system will automatically generate meeting minutes in a format that's to an ASX standard. So we're recording all the minutes, all the tasks or action items that came out of it, all the decisions. We've got a summary of matters arising, all the decisions that were decided on, all the tasks that were allocated, and any attachments that are linked through as well from the PDF as part of that. Are all done for you. So from a secretary's job of running meetings, I've just saved you many hours from trying to transcribe handwritten notes to Word to PDF to trying to remember everyone's email that was in attendance. We can do this job for you really, really quickly with it all, and we're automatically tracking all the action items coming out of it. So that's really a very helpful thing. Memberships, I'll run over this quickly. So you can obviously set up your memberships. All my players were going through Sports TG. So most of that wasn't a problem for me. That would vary from club to club, might I add. So some clubs use us to do player rego, just because we're a bit easier. But given our partnership with STG, I'll say that, we're all about the non-playing memberships. So corporate memberships and things like that. You set up a description of your membership, why people are going to buy your membership, the value that you're going to give the past players to pay you. It can be a fixed or rolling period type membership, how long it goes for, how much it's going to cost them. This is the finance category that we're automatically going to drop this money into. So we're going to save the treasurer's workload of double handling numbers here. We've got this auto renew feature. So every 12 months, we're just going to charge people $200 again. Obviously the system will notify them that we're going to do that. But this has been really good for my footy club because past players, for example, are great because they want to support the club. A clear majority of them are happy to support the club. I think it's the most expensive baseball running cap that I own because they charge me a couple of $100 for it. But I'm quite okay, and they just charge my card every 12 months for it, which is easy for the club. This is your registration form. So this is where all those custom fields can come in handy. So quite often I'd collect the occupation for the past players because it's always good to know who the Sparkies and the Plumbers are amongst everyone else. So I'd often put that in the registration form. You can reorder that here as well. You can have waivers and terms and conditions and those sorts of things. Welcome messages, which again, you can personalize here with some merge tags. So you can say, welcome Isaac to membership. And these are all the expiry bits. So you can send reminders to pay up again for next year and things of that nature. You can notify specific people. So we'd task someone to look after the past players. So David's responsible or Jordan's responsible for past players. So everyone that registered for this membership, Jordan would get an email about. So he could pick up the phone and welcome them, invite them down to the golf day and the corporate lunch and everything else that we'd put on for them throughout the course of the season. You can adjust the visibility, which most footy clubs don't use. Some of the other groups like Rotary clubs that only want memberships available to vetted people and things like that use that sort of functionality. You can automatically add them to a specific group of people as well. So we can add them into the 2020 members group, for example. This is the public link that you can put on Facebook or wherever it might be. And for clubs that are advertising on Facebook, you can drop in this pixel that they use for advertising so we can see how successful an ad campaign has been. That's memberships in a nutshell, and there's a bunch of reports and what have you. I'll skip over the rest because we can do those sorts of things another time with web pages and shop merchandise. You're more than welcome to switch them on and have a play with them. Tasks is the sort of final thread with it all. Obviously, we've generated a bunch of tasks out of meetings. The secret here is that you can allocate tasks to roles, not just individuals. So what we're doing here is setting up the succession plan for the club. So me as president, there was no real handover. It was she'll be right, mate. I think I got a pint of beer bought for me. Pat on the back. If you get stuck, give me a call. You'll be good. That was the handover, basically. And the rest of the time I had to learn as to what's going on. For most footy clubs, there's a bit of a cadence to it. So pre-season, I know that the president has to set up or someone at the footy club has to set up a pre-season launch, and we have to get everyone registered. We have to get Sports CG sorted out. We have to have affiliation fees to the league. We have to give details to the league about X, Y, and Z, all those sorts of things. They can be allocated out to those roles that we set up before. So every team manager, for example, has to get game day stuff sorted before April 1, for example. Or, the secretary has to have committee meetings, season kickoff meetings done by March. So you can set up all these sorts of things in here and allocate the job to the secretary. As soon as I go in here and, at the AGM, I switch Isaac over from secretary to say Bev, if I have a Bev. Let's say it's Jordan actually. So now Jordan's the secretary. So all those tasks that were assigned to me as secretary are now assigned to Jordan. So he'll start getting the reminders to get this job done. So it means that as a footy club, I've got, I'm sure there's at least 10 tasks that all of you have in your head as to what needs to get done pre-season, in-season, post-season, that you can drop in here and set up your succession plan ready for the club, ready to go with it all. And you can have unlimited tasks and unlimited roles that you can assign out to everyone, which is pretty handy. And all these jobs that we set up in meetings and events and all those sorts of things will automatically get dropped into here. David to review the finances that we set up in that meeting for Bev is automatically done here. So we're reducing the amount of workload or cognitive load for you as the president or whatever role you have in the committee to keep tabs on it all. I might leave it there and ask if there's any questions, because obviously the system does a huge amount. We're yet to get into events and pages and shop and those sorts of things, but I've probably already overloaded you with a huge amount of information. I'll just have a quick look at the chat from Josh. Are payments to invoices made through Stripe and then automatically reconciled, or do you have to do this manually? So no, this is automatically reconciled through the whole system. As soon as someone pays, we're doing all that calculating with Stripe, and we're reconciling it automatically for you. We'll also record it. If Isaac buys your event ticket or membership or invoice or what have you, you're automatically recording it against Isaac. So over here in the contacts section, if I click on one of these people, like Sue, for example, I can look at Sue. I can see in here what group she's a member of. I can see what membership she has or doesn't have. These are family links, so I can see that Isaac is probably Sue's partner because it's an adult to adult relationship. If we've got, say, Jordan, we can say that Jordan is a child of Sue, for example, so we can start to link family details in here as well. These are all the activities that we've got related to Sue as a contact, so you can see all the different interactions she has, but we can also see finances. So we can see all the transactions that she's made over time to the club as well. So as people pay Josh, they'll automatically be recorded against those people, and any money outstanding to them will be recorded here as well. From Mark Johnston, can you get a report of outstanding tasks from all the meetings? Yeah, so that's basically just through the tasks section. So in here, this is how I'd run my committee meetings. I'd literally come in here and look at all the current tasks, or I could look at all the overdue tasks, or I could look at all the stuff that's due this week or due this month to understand what was going on, so I could chase people up for it and we'd talk about what's going on around the club. David Sinclair, is there an ongoing help desk? Yeah, there is. So there's a few ways to get in touch with us. You can click on this blue button at the bottom right of the platform. And if you click here, you can send us a message. We usually operate, or we try and operate business hours, Australian business hours. So you can send us a message if you've got something to say. How do I set up an event? Whatever the case might be, you can send us a message that way. And we've also got a knowledge base. So if you go to support, if I can spell it, support.tidyhq.com, this will bring up a whole bunch of articles that you can navigate through to find out bits and pieces around memberships, renewing memberships, getting your committee on board, all sorts of things. So there's a few ways to work through things with us on that front. Josh, can we have a quick 1 minute overview of events? Certainly. You didn't say please, but we'll do it anyway. So events. So all my on-field stuff, as I said, was being handled by STG, or the competition system. This was mainly for all my fundraising events. So here's an event that has already been set up, but effectively, I'll just go into it now. Setting up an event, set up your event name. We can set up drop in an image of your event here, when the event starts, when it ends, the location of the event. You can drag this around if you want to get really specific with it. The venue limit, how many people can attend the venue. Description of it all. You can drop in your sponsors and all sorts of anything that you want in here. You can choose to have an agenda if you want. This is optional, to have a schedule in here as to how the day is going to run. If you're running a golf day or corporate lunch or something like that, you may want an agenda. But it's completely optional. Tickets, so you can set up all sorts of tickets here. You can have free tickets and paid tickets. For the paid tickets, the real interesting one for me as a footy club was that we'd have this past player membership. Like I said, we'd have a 100 up club or 150 up club and things like that. Or we'd have corporate memberships. What you can do with your event, so we'd have a corporate lunch. And for everyone that had a corporate membership, we'd provide the tickets at $50 instead of $100. So there was some loyalty to being a corporate member. And if we were trying to drive more people to become members of the club in that way. So you can have member specific ticketing with it all. This is the finance category that we set up. So here we've got these new categories that I set up with you guys just previous. So you can set up bits and pieces like that. So that's doing that treasurer's job for them. So any money that attendees pay for this event will automatically be reconciled into this events category. And these are all the attendee information. So this is all the questions that people will be asked as they purchase their tickets. And we're automatically adding contacts to a group. So one of my pains was that we'd run a really great corporate lunch, and then I'd have to figure out who came last year and invite them again. And often we wouldn't even get that smart with it. We just put a poster on the wall or put it on Facebook again and point to it. Whereas what we're doing and what the system's doing is it's automatically grouping all the attendees into a group. So you can send an email out saying, hey guys, corporate lunch is on again. We know you had a great time last year. You should come along. So if I save that event really quickly, and I'll show you what it looks like. So we're setting up this event for you. I'll just zoom out a bit. So we set up this event. You got your sponsors logos, the schedule. We've got this membership required type ticket. I can get the tickets here. And this is all works on mobile, tablet, all those sorts of things. So I can get my tickets, or if I want, I can purchase a membership in order to get this ticket. And I can check out, and I can go through this, which will go through into various bits and pieces. Whatever's in here. Occupation. I can proceed to the payment, and this is Stripe. So this is where I'm collecting the credit card details and issuing a ticket, and then they'll get a receipt and a PDF of the tickets. As I go through, the system's recording all the transactions that are happening, all the tasks that are involved with this event are being recorded as well. So you can duplicate this event and everything will be duplicated across. So there's a template to running this. So again, I was tasked with running the corporate lunch. I had no idea how to get that thing started. Whereas with this, I can just duplicate last year's event and I've got a bit of a head start ready to go. I'm also recording all the attendees. One thing that I can do with this system, which was really good for me, especially with the corporate lunches, etc., was that Peter would come to me and say, hey, I'm good for a ticket, put me down for 2 tickets, because I couldn't get him online to do it. This way I can manually add attendees. So let's just say he's going to get one of these tickets. I can go through, I can again put in all these details that we've asked for. What have you. I can drop in the details of the person. Let's just say it's Jordan. He needs an invoice. It'll be due in a few weeks' time, and we can add tickets. So we've just added Jordan. We've given him a ticket over here in the attendees. So Jordan's got another ticket, and an invoice has automatically been sent to him for $50. It'll automatically be in my finances area in the awaiting payment section, so we can chase him up for this money if he doesn't pay in time. And Jordan's got an email with a pay now link that will take him to a page that he can enter his credit card and pay for things. So again, we're automatically doing all that sort of work with it all. And you can obviously share this. This is a short link that you can share out to Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is that you want with it all. That was more than 1 minute, Josh, but hopefully that was good. Are we able to create a public web page without a registered domain through TidyHQ? Yeah, absolutely. So default, you have this TidyHQ domain, which all of you have, which is like this, but with your club name here. There is an optional app here called the custom web domain. So if you install this one and follow these instructions, you can use your own domain. So you can have myclub.com instead of the TidyHQ address, which plenty of clubs use for us. So you can use us as your website with the Pages app as well, which is pretty neat. Hopefully that answers it. From Gregory, how secure is the information? It's very secure. It's all encrypted and all, we use SSL, which is the same security levels as banks and what have you. The biggest issues with clubs is the humans, as always. That's usually the weakest point for any IT system. So if people have access to this back end of the system, they can obviously export out your contacts and all those sorts of things, which, that's why you also restrict permissions to specific areas of the platform as well. So it's as secure as we can be, as far as I know, with the system. When it comes to the members side of things, so we're very hot on privacy. We take it pretty seriously. So every member that registers with the platform has their own profile where they can store their credit card. They can see what receipts they've made, what transactions they've made, and all of those sorts of things with it as well. So they have their own portal into bits and pieces. The other bit with security, like I might have touched on, Sports TG, for example, we'd have one login to Sports TG and we'd share it amongst 10 people to register players and to try and do game day stuff, which from a governance point of view was a disaster. What we're trying to do here, especially with admins, is we want people to log in with their personal email address rather than their club's email address. So we don't want people logging in with president@footballclub.com. We actually want people registering with their personal email. And the reason that we want that is that when it comes to handover, it's much easier to drop David off with his personal email and invite on somebody else rather than having a generic email account that David kind of still has access to in a roundabout way, which is a problem for clubs. Unfortunately, we see it when the proverbial goes wrong for clubs and there's some argy-bargy and people get the shits and don't hand over the keys well. And that's what this system's trying to handle more eloquently for groups. Hopefully I've answered you, group. Any other questions with any of it? we're at the top of the hour. I feel like I've dumped a huge amount of information on you. If you do have any questions with it all, I know that at Sean and Company we're doing bits and pieces to help you out along the path. So get in touch with Sean. We're obviously more than happy to run another one of these with you guys. There's that support information down the bottom right there. Like I said, Stuart's also available to help with any onboarding if you need as well. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 clubs already using you throughout the league, using us throughout the league, that I know Sean's been leaning on a little bit as well to understand how it's being used out there in the field. Any other questions or feedback or anything else? Otherwise, I'm happy to leave it there and call it a night.